Hello, BIOL1001. Welcome to week 10. So we're moving on to our conversation of biology of human identity. So last week we learned a little bit about our evolutionary history, where we came from. There goes my dog, back to bed. Where we came from, who our ancestors were, and how natural selection has played a role in the diversity of human populations we see around the world. This week we're going to be learning about a different type of selection, and that's sexual selection. This is really related to the evolution of traits that on the surface might seem contradictory to natural selection. They might seem to have some sort of fitness cost in terms of survival, but in fact when we do a little bit closer inspection we find that they increase reproductive success. So sexual selection, more formally, is selection that decreases individual survival but tends to increase reproductive success. And that can explain the evolution of a lot of very curious traits we see in nature. It can also explain a lot of the sexual dimorphism we see in nature. For instance, in a lot of birds we see that the males are very flashy and the females are relatively camouflaged. So we'll be studying this subject. We'll be looking at why we see different sexes in the first place. It's related to investment in resources for gametes. We'll be looking at different types of sexual selection in terms of different types of female choice. What might females be cueing in on when they're making their choice? We'll be looking at different types of competition amongst males. How do males compete for those mating opportunities? And we talk about those in terms of males and females. Females choose, males are competitive. That's not always the case. In some systems, actually, the males are the choosy ones and the females are the competitive ones. But you'll see when we get to the sort of why we see different sexes in the first place in terms of resource investment, it tends to be females who are choosy and males who are competitive. We'll also be talking about the sexual determination, so the biological basis of different sexes. For humans, of course, we know that there's the XY system. XY results in a biological female. XX results in a biological male. We'll be looking at different sex determination systems, haploid, diploidy, in ants and wasps. We'll also be looking at environmental determinants of sex. And we'll also be comparing this and looking at this in the context of gender identity, which can separately be genetically determined, right? We know, for instance, that homosexual attraction has a genetic component that's different than biological sex determination, right? So we'll be teasing apart a biological understanding of sex and a biological understanding of sexual identity, which is very important. You don't want to conflate the two. It can lead to a lot of confusion from a biological standpoint. So that's how we'll be relating it back to human sexuality. And really trying to understand the diversity of human sexuality that we observe in modern human populations that probably was around in ancestral human populations. In addition to that, you have your lab assignments. So we're continuing on with the Serengeti lab, and this lab is really focused, this week is really focused on kind of doing practice work with the data. So you'd be working with your group, trying to come up with different graphs using the program JUMP to really dig into questions related to diversity in the Serengeti. And it will be predominantly focused on wildebeest this week. Like I said, this is a practice week. So really take the time to kind of get familiar with how JUMP works, what the data looks like, what you can do with it. Because once you get to your individual project, you're going to be flying solo. Obviously, you can come to me for help, or come to Lindsay. We're happy to help you. But this is really your chance to kind of work with your group and kind of troubleshoot these things before you actually get into doing your own project. All right, have a good week. Talk to you later.